The warning lights flashed red across the command center. Commander Hyunwoo stood at the main display, watching the enemy fleet approach. 37 warships. All of them belonged to the Dakrin Empire. All of them were coming to destroy Terminus Prime. How long until they reach firing range? Hyunwoo asked. Lieutenant Mirai checked her screen. 4 hours, sir. Maybe less if they increase speed. Around the room, officers from different alien species worked at their stations. The insect-like Vrath clicked their mandibles nervously. The crystalline Keltons hummed in low frequencies. Even the gaseous Nomari, who usually stayed calm, swirled with dark colors that showed fear. Hyunwoo had commanded this station for 2 years. In all that time, he had never seen an enemy force this large. The Coalition had only 12 ships defending Terminus Prime. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. Begin evacuation protocols, he said quietly. Get the civilians off this world first. Military personnel will follow. Sir, we have an incoming transmission, Mirai said. It's encrypted. Human channels only, Hyunwoo frowned. Human-only channels were rare. The Coalition preferred all species to share information. He walked to Mirai's station and entered his command codes. The message appeared on her screen. It contained only 7 words. Reaper is on station. Maintain radio silence. Hyunwoo felt his breath catch. He had heard stories about Reaper. Every human in the military had. But he always thought they were just stories. Legends that soldiers told to feel brave. Sir, what does it mean? Mirai asked. I don't know, Hyunwoo lied. He knew exactly what it meant. It meant that somewhere in this sector a single human operative was preparing to do the impossible. The Vrath commander, whose name translated to something like Claw Strike, approached Hyunwoo. The insectoid stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and armored plates covering his body. Why do you delay the evacuation order? Claw Strike demanded. My people must leave now. We have time, Hyunwoo said. 4 hours. Time? Claw Strike's mandibles clacked in what might have been laughter. You humans always think you have time. This is why your species is weak. You delay, you hope. You dream of miracles. Hyunwoo said nothing. He had learned long ago that arguing with Claw Strike accomplished nothing. Instead, he returned to the main display and watched the Dakrin fleet advance. The hours passed slowly. The evacuation proceeded, but it would take days to move everyone off Terminus Prime. The Dakrin fleet would arrive long before they finished. Hyunwoo prepared himself for the order he would have to give. The order to retreat, the order to abandon thousands of people who could not evacuate in time. Then, 18 hours after the first message, something strange happened. Sir, the Dakrin fleet has stopped, Mirai reported. They're holding position at the edge of weapon range. Why would they stop? Claw Strike demanded. They have superior numbers. Hyunwoo studied the display. The Dakrin ship sat motionless in space like predators that suddenly sensed danger. Minutes turned into hours. The fleet did not advance. They did not retreat. They simply waited. I'm detecting unusual communications traffic from the Dakrin fleet, Mirai said. Multiple ships are reporting system failures. Life support malfunctions. Power fluctuations. How many ships? Hyunwoo asked. 7 so far, no. Wait. 9. 11. Mirai's voice rose with excitement. Sir, they're lighting up across the board. It's like something is spreading through their fleet. Claw Strike leaned closer to examine the data. Impossible. Ship systems do not fail simultaneously without cause. This must be a virus. A digital attack. The Dakrin have the best cybersecurity in the galaxy, the Kelthan officer said. Her crystalline body rang like a bell when she spoke. Nothing can penetrate their firewalls. But the failures continued. One by one, Dakrin warships reported critical malfunctions. Some lost weapon systems. Others lost navigation. 3 ships collided with each other when their positioning thrusters fired at random. Then came the explosion. The Dakrin command ship, a massive dreadnought at the center of the fleet, erupted in a ball of fire. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull. Escape pods launched in all directions. Within minutes, the pride of the Dakrin armada was nothing but debris. What happened? Hyunwoo whispered. Mirai worked frantically at her console. I'm detecting traces of a reactor overload. But sir, reactors don't just overload. They have dozens of safety systems. Someone would have had to disable every single failsafe. From inside the ship, Hyunwoo finished. Silence filled the command center. Every officer stared at the display, watching as the Dakrin fleet fell apart. More explosions. More system failures. And according to all their sensors, the Doctrine were fighting an enemy that did not exist. Over the next 2 days, the situation grew worse for the Doctrine. 3 of their admirals were found dead in their quarters. Security footage showed nothing. No intruders. No weapons discharged. The admirals simply died and nobody knew how. Supply ships reported missing cargo. Weapons disappeared from armories. Soldiers started seeing shadows that vanished when they looked directly at them. Fear spread through the Doctrine fleet like a plague. On the 3rd day, the Doctrine retreated. 37 warships, the largest attack force the Doctrine had assembled in a decade, fled from Terminus Prime. They left behind debris, damaged ships, and a mystery that nobody could explain. The coalition celebrated. Officers from every species congratulated each other on their victory. But Hyun-woo did not celebrate. He stood alone in his office, staring at a single message on his screen. Mission complete. Reaper departing, that was all. No explanation, no details. Just confirmation that someone or something had saved Terminus Prime without firing a single shot from a coalition ship. Claw Strike entered Hyun-woo's office without knocking. The Vrath Council demands answers. What happened to the Doctrine fleet? They retreated, Hyun-woo said simply. I know they retreated. Claw Strike's mandibles snapped with irritation. I want to know why. What weapon did you use? What secret technology do the humans possess? Hyun-woo smiled slightly. We used patience. Patience is not a weapon. Tell that to the Doctrine. Claw Strike left unsatisfied. Other alien commanders came throughout the day, all asking the same questions. What happened? How did you do it? What weapon defeated an entire fleet? Hyun-woo gave them all the same answer. He told them the truth. One human operative had infiltrated the enemy fleet and destroyed it from within. One person had accomplished what their combined forces could not. None of them believed him. One person cannot defeat a fleet, the Kelthan commander insisted. It violates basic military logic. Maybe, Hyun-woo said. Or maybe we've been thinking about warfare wrong. That night, Hyun-woo accessed the classified files about Reaper. His command codes gave him limited access. What he found made him understand why the other species refused to believe. 47 missions. 47 impossible tasks. 0 failures. In 10 years of operation, Reaper had never been captured, never been photographed clearly, and never been identified by enemy forces. Intelligence estimated that Reaper had personally prevented 14 major conflicts, assassinated 23 high-value targets, and saved countless lives. And nobody knew who Reaper really was. The file contained fragments. A first name, Taemin, a birthplace Korean Peninsula reclamation zone on Earth, an age approximately 32 years old. Beyond that, almost nothing. It was as if Reaper existed only when needed, then vanished like smoke. Hyun-woo closed the file and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a human moved through the darkness. Unseen, unknown, unstoppable. He whispered softly and moved quietly, but his name made armies tremble. Reaper. 3 weeks after the Terminus Prime incident, Hyun-woo received new orders. He was to travel to Earth's lunar base and meet with someone from Coalition intelligence. The message said nothing more, but Hyun-woo knew it was about Reaper. The journey took 5 days. Hyun-woo spent most of that time reading everything he could find about human special operations. The information was limited. Humans had joined the Galactic Coalition 300 years ago, but they remained secretive about their military methods. Other species found this suspicious. Hyun-woo found it smart. The lunar base sat inside a crater on the dark side of Earth's moon. From space, it looked like just another research facility. But Hyun-woo's clearance codes opened doors that most people never knew existed. Deep underground, past security checkpoints and armed guards, he found the office he was looking for. An old woman sat behind a simple desk. She looked about 70 years old with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She stood when Hyun-woo entered and offered her hand. Commander Hyun-woo. I'm Ji-won, please sit. Hyun-woo shook her hand and sat in the chair across from her. The office contained no decorations, no pictures, no personal items. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and a single screen on the wall. You want to know about Reaper, Ji-won said. It was not a question. Yes, Hyun-woo said. The Coalition Council is asking questions I cannot answer. They want to understand what happened at Terminus Prime. Tell them it was luck. They won't believe that. Good. Let them wonder. Jiwon smiled slightly. Uncertainty is a weapon, Commander. The Doctrine are terrified because they don't understand what happened. That fear will prevent future attacks better than any fleet. But I need to understand, Hyunwoo said. How did one person defeat 37 warships? Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Then she reached forward and activated the screen on the wall. An image appeared. It showed a young boy, maybe 7 years old, standing in the ruins of a building. Fire burned in the background. The boy's face was dirty and streaked with tears, but his eyes were steady. This is Taemin, Jiwon said, age 7. The Doctrine raided his home during the border wars. They killed everyone in his village. 300 people. Taemin survived by hiding in a storage cellar for 4 days until rescue teams arrived. The image changed. Now it showed a teenager in military training uniform. Same boy, older now, with harder eyes. The government put him in a military academy. He excelled at everything. Top marks in tactics, strategy, and combat. But his instructors noticed something unusual. Taemin didn't just learn the lessons. He understood the reasons behind them. He saw patterns that others missed. Another image. A young man, maybe 19 years old, dressed in black combat gear. I recruited him into the Shadow Corps when he was 19, youngest operative in the program's history. At first, the other operatives laughed at him. They thought he was too quiet, too careful, too slow. Jiwon paused. They stopped laughing after his first mission. What happened? Hyunwoo asked. The Doctrine had built a weapons facility in neutral space. It violated 12 different treaties, but they didn't care. The coalition couldn't attack it directly without starting a war. So we sent a team to destroy it from inside. 4 operatives. Highly trained, experienced. Jiwon's expression hardened. 3 of them died in the first hour. The 4th barely escaped. The mission was a complete failure. And then Taemin volunteered to try alone. The screen showed blueprints of a massive facility. I told him no. He was too young. Too inexperienced. But he spent 3 weeks studying the facility. He learned the guard schedules, the supply routes, the shift changes. He found 17 different ways to enter and 32 ways to exit. And then he went, alone? Hyunwoo asked. Alone. He entered through a waste disposal tunnel. It took him 11 hours to crawl through toxic sludge that would have killed most species. Once inside, he didn't rush. He spent 4 days moving through the facility. He posed as a maintenance worker. He ate in their cafeteria. He even had conversations with Doctrine soldiers. Hyunwoo leaned forward. They didn't recognize him as human. Humans and Doctrine look similar enough if you hide the details. Taemin wore a maintenance suit that covered most of his body. He kept his head down. He moved like he belonged there. The Doctrine never thought to question him. And then, on the 5th day, every reactor in the facility overloaded simultaneously. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. Taemin escaped in a supply shuttle 30 minutes before detonation. 173 enemy soldiers died. 0 civilian casualties. Mission complete. Jiwon turned off the screen. That was 13 years ago. Since then, Taemin has completed 46 more impossible missions. He has saved more lives than we can count, and almost nobody knows his real name. Hyunwoo tried to understand. But how? How does one person do these things? By understanding what other species don't, Jiwon said. Humans evolved as both predators and prey. We learned to hunt, but we also learned to hide. We developed patience. We learned to wait, to watch, to strike only when the moment is perfect. The other species don't have this. The Vrath are warriors. They believe in honor and direct combat. The Kelthans value logic and calculations. The Nomari prefer diplomacy. All of them are strong in their own ways, but none of them understand how to be invisible. How to make the enemy defeat themselves through their own fear. Jiwon stood and walked to the window. Earth hung in the sky beyond, blue and beautiful. Taemin once told me something. He said that armies fight with strength, but he fights with patience. They announce their presence. He becomes the doubt in their minds. They look for grand threats. He is the whisper that asks, what if? The Doctrine at Terminus Prime, Hyunwoo said slowly. They defeated themselves. Exactly. Taemin didn't need to destroy all 37 ships. He only needed to destroy their confidence. Once they started doubting their own systems, their own security, their own commanders, the battle was already lost. Hyunwoo thought about this. It was brilliant. Terrible and brilliant. Where is he now? He asked. I don't know, Jiwon said. Nobody does. That's the point. Taemin exists in the spaces between missions. He has no home, no family, no life outside of his work. He is Reaper, and Reaper is everywhere and nowhere. That sounds like a lonely existence. It is. The price of being our greatest weapon is that nobody can ever truly know you. Ji-won returned to her desk. Taemin writes letters sometimes. To an old friend from childhood, a woman named Sora. She's an engineer on Mars. They've never met in person, but they've been writing to each other for 20 years. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand. When the council asks about Reaper, you need to help them understand what they're really asking. They want to know about a weapon. But Taemin is not a weapon. He's a man who sacrificed everything to keep people safe. He lives in shadows so that others can live in light. An alarm sounded softly. Ji-won checked her screen. You should leave now. Officially, this meeting never happened. Officially, Reaper is just a rumor. A ghost story that soldiers tell. Hyun-woo stood. But what if something happens to him? What if the Doctrine capture him? Or kill him? Then we train another, Ji-won said simply. There are always more shadows. Always more people willing to become ghosts. As Hyun-woo left the office, he thought about what Ji-won had said. About sacrifice. About loneliness. About one man moving through darkness so that billions could live in peace. On his way back through the facility, an alert appeared on his communicator. Lieutenant Mirai had sent an urgent message. The Doctrine had captured one of their officers during a reconnaissance mission. The officer was being held on Kavar 9, a fortress world deep in Doctrine territory. Rescue was impossible. Hyun-woo stopped walking. He looked at the message for a long moment. Then he noticed a second message just arrived. 7 words. Reaper is on station. Maintain radio silence. Somewhere in the darkness, Taemin was already moving. Kavar 9 was known as the Unbreakable Fortress. Built into the side of a mountain, the Doctrine military complex housed 10,000 soldiers and contained enough weapons to level a continent. 300 years of Doctrine engineering had made it the most secure location in their empire. Nothing got in without authorization. Nothing got out without permission. Taemin studied the fortress from orbit, hidden inside a stolen cargo container aboard a Doctrine supply ship. He had been inside the container for 6 days. No food, no water, just patience. His body had learned to survive on very little. His mind had learned to stay calm through any discomfort. The supply ship docked at the fortress's main cargo bay. Workers unloaded containers. Taemin waited until his container was placed in the processing area. Then he waited 3 more hours. When the shift changed and the cargo bay emptied, he carefully cut through the container's seal and slipped out. He wore a maintenance uniform stolen from another facility. A cap covered most of his face. He carried a toolkit and a portable scanner. To anyone watching, he looked like just another worker checking container seals for damage. Taemin moved through the fortress with slow, deliberate steps. The key to invisibility was not speed. It was belonging. People ignored what seemed normal. They only noticed what seemed wrong. So Taemin made himself look right. He spent the first day mapping camera locations. The second day, he learned guard patrol patterns. The third day, he identified the shift supervisors and memorized their routines. He did not rush. Rushing led to mistakes. Mistakes led to discovery. Discovery led to death. On the 4th day, Taemin found Lieutenant Mirai. She was being held in Section 7, a high-security detention area. 30 guards patrolled the section. Cameras covered every angle. Access required 3 different security clearances. Getting her out would be nearly impossible. So Taemin waited. He took a maintenance job repairing ventilation systems. This gave him access to crawl spaces throughout the fortress. He worked slowly, carefully, always looking tired and bored. The Doctrine guards ignored him. Workers were beneath their notice. On the 5th day, Taemin met a Doctrine soldier named Vekroth. It happened in the facility cafeteria. Taemin was eating a bland protein meal when Vekroth sat down across from him. "You're new," Vekroth said. His voice was surprisingly gentle for a Doctrine warrior. "I haven't seen you before." Taemin kept his head down. "Transfer. From the supply depot on Kavar 3. Bad luck. This place is worse." Vekroth ate in silence for a moment. "I've been stationed here for 3 years. Every day the same. Guard duty. Training. Guard duty. Training. Sometimes I forget what I'm even guarding against." Taemin said nothing. Silence encouraged people to talk more. "You know what's funny?" Vekroth continued. "They tell us we're warriors. protectors of the Empire, but we spend our lives locked in this fortress, terrified of shadows. Ever since Terminus Prime, Command sees threats everywhere. They think the human ghost, what did they call him, Reaper? They think he could appear anywhere. Maybe he could, Taman said quietly. Vekroth laughed. One human against the entire Dakran military? It's just propaganda. Fear tactics. There's no such thing as one soldier who can destroy fleets. Taman nodded and continued eating.
He did not argue.
Arguments made people remember you. Agreement made you forgettable. Over the next 2 days, Taman saw Vekroth several more times. They spoke briefly. Small talk, weather conditions, food quality, nothing important. But Taman learned that Vekroth was tired. Tired of war, tired of living in fear, tired of serving commanders who saw soldiers as disposable. On the 7th day, Taman was ready. He had spent a week placing small devices throughout the fortress. Each device was simple. Some created electrical interference. Others produced odd sounds. A few released chemicals that smelled like smoke. None of them were dangerous, but together they would create chaos. Taman activated the first device at midnight. An electrical panel in Section 3 sparked and smoked. Guards rushed to investigate. While they were distracted, Taman activated Device 2 in Section 5. More sparks. More smoke. Alarms began to sound. The fortress went into alert status. Soldiers ran through corridors. Officers shouted orders. Nobody noticed one maintenance worker moving calmly through the confusion. Taman reached Section 7 during shift change. The guards were distracted, checking their equipment for malfunctions. He used stolen access codes to open the first security door. Then the second. Then the third. Lieutenant Mirai was in the 4th cell. She looked up when Taman entered, eyes wide with surprise. Who? Stay quiet, Taman whispered. We're leaving. The guards are busy. Taman cut through her restraints with a laser cutter. Can you walk? Yes, but then follow me. Stay close. Move like you belong here. They walked out of Section 7 while alarms blared overhead. Taman had timed everything perfectly. The guards were responding to false emergencies in other sections. The cameras were showing footage from 2 hours earlier, thanks to a virus Taman had planted in the security system days ago. They were halfway to the cargo bay when they encountered Vekroth. The Dakran soldier stood in the corridor, weapon in hand. He looked at Taman, then at Mirai, then back at Taman. Recognition dawned in his eyes. You, Vekroth said softly. The maintenance worker. You're just trying to leave, Taman said calmly. His hand moved toward the weapon hidden under his uniform. Vekroth raised his weapon. For a long moment, nobody moved. The alarm continued to wail. Footsteps echoed from distant corridors. You're Reaper, Vekroth said. Aren't you? Taman said nothing. I could call for backup, Vekroth continued. Capture you. I'd be a hero. They'd probably promote me. Give me medals. Probably, Taman agreed. But I'm tired of being a hero for people I don't respect. Vekroth lowered his weapon slightly. You know what I realized? The commanders in this fortress, they don't care about us. We're just tools to them. Weapons that happen to breathe. I know, Taman said quietly. Is that why you fight the way you do? Not with armies, but alone? Armies destroy. I try to protect. Vekroth was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. The cargo bay is 3 corridors left, then down 2 levels. There's a supply shuttle scheduled to depart in 11 minutes. The pilot is named Corvin. He drinks too much and falls asleep during flights. Thank you, Taman said. Don't thank me. Just, Vekroth hesitated. If you see more of my people, remember that not all of us want this war. Some of us are just trapped, Taman nodded. Then he and Mirai moved past Vekroth and disappeared into the corridor. They reached the cargo bay with minutes to spare. True to Vekroth's word, the pilot was unconscious in his seat. Taman moved him gently aside and took the controls. As they lifted off, the fortress's reactor began to overload. Taman had planted his final surprise 7 days ago. A virus in the reactor control system. It wouldn't destroy the reactor completely. That would kill too many people. Instead, it would cause a controlled failure. The fortress would lose power. Emergency systems would activate. Confusion would reign for days. They were clear of Kavar 9's atmosphere when the fortress went dark. Mirai stared at Taman in the dim light of the shuttle. Who are you? Someone who was available. Taman said. The Doctrine call you Reaper. They say you're a ghost, a demon, something impossible. I'm just patient. Patient people don't infiltrate fortresses alone. Patient people don't rescue hostages from the most secure facility in the Doctrine Empire. Taman adjusted their course toward Coalition space. You expected something different? I expected... Mirai stopped. I don't know what I expected. Something more than just a man. That's why it works, Taman said simply. They expect monsters. They look for grand threats. They prepare for armies. They never look for one person who's willing to wait, to watch, to move only when the moment is right. How long were you in that fortress? 7 days. You could have tried to rescue me on day 1, and failed, Taman said. Speed isn't victory. Patience is. I needed 7 days to learn the fortress, to understand the guards, to find the weaknesses. 1 day would have gotten us both killed. Mirai was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked, What's your real name? Taman. How long have you been Reaper? 13 years. Do you ever get tired? Taman didn't answer for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. Every day. They flew in silence after that. Behind them, Kavar 9's fortress struggled with system failures. Ahead of them, Coalition space waited. And in the darkness between, one man carried the weight of being a legend that could never rest. The Doctrine Empire was humiliated. Twice now, Reaper had struck at their most secure locations. Twice he had vanished without being caught. The supreme commander of the Doctrine military, Warlord Kravix, could not accept this. He issued a decree that spread across every Doctrine world. 1 million credits to whoever delivered Reaper's head. An entire sector of space to whoever captured him alive. It was the largest bounty in galactic history. Within days, bounty hunters from across the galaxy converged on human space. Some were professionals. Others were desperate criminals. A few were even Coalition species who saw an opportunity for wealth. The hunt for Reaper became the most talked-about event in the known galaxy. Hyunwoo watched it all with growing concern from his office on Terminus Prime. Reports flooded in daily. Bounty hunters attacking human ships. Innocent people being kidnapped and interrogated. Entire human settlements living in fear. Lieutenant Mirai, now working directly with Hyunwoo after her rescue, stood beside him at the display. We need to do something. This is getting out of control. What can we do? Hyunwoo asked. Reaper is one man. We can't protect him from the entire galaxy. We could bring him in, put him under Coalition protection. He would refuse. How do you know? Because men like Taman don't hide behind others. They become the shield. As if summoned by speaking his name, a message appeared on Hyunwoo's screen. 7 familiar words. Reaper is on station. Maintain radio silence, but this time something felt different. Hyunwoo stared at the message, trying to understand what bothered him. Then he realized. Reaper never announced himself unless a mission was about to begin. But there was no mission, no threat, no emergency, unless Reaper was planning something. Get me, Jiwon, Hyunwoo said urgently. Now. It took 3 hours to establish a secure connection to Earth's lunar base. When Jiwon's face appeared on the screen, she looked older than Hyunwoo remembered. Tired. Commander, she said. I assume this is about Taman. He sent a message. But there's no active mission. What is he planning? Jiwon sighed. Taman has gone dark. Even we've lost track of him. He's disappeared more completely than usual. That's impossible. Your Coalition intelligence. You track everyone. We track everyone except people who understand how tracking works. Taman knows our systems better than we do. If he wants to vanish, he vanishes. Hyunwoo felt cold fear in his stomach. Why would he do this? Because he's doing what he always does. Taking the mission that nobody else can. Jiwon paused. 3 days ago, we intercepted Doctrine communications. They're planning something big. We don't know what, but it involves Warlord Kravix personally. You think Taman is going after Kravix? I think Taman is tired of running. And I think he's realized something important. As long as he exists, the Doctrine will keep chasing him. As long as they chase him, innocent people suffer. So he's going to end it. End it how? By giving them what they want. A confrontation with Reaper. Mirai, who had been listening, spoke up. That's suicide. The Doctrine will have thousands of soldiers protecting Kravix. One man can't what? Jiwon interrupted. Can't infiltrate a fortress? Can't destroy a fleet? We keep saying what one man can't do, and Taman keeps proving us wrong. This is different, Hyunwoo insisted. This isn't a stealth mission. This is what Taman has been preparing for his entire career, Jiwan said quietly. He's not trying to assassinate Kravix. He's trying to destroy the Dakran Empire's will to fight, and he can't do that alone. What do you mean? Jiwan's expression changed. For the first time, Hyun-woo saw something like hope in her eyes. 4 years ago, Taman started training new operatives. 4 humans. Their names are Jinha, Yoonji, Daeho, and Yuna. He taught them everything he knows, and right now they're positioned throughout Dakran space. Hyun-woo understood. He's not going after Kravix alone. No, he's going to fracture the Empire from multiple points simultaneously. While everyone focuses on finding Reaper, his students will be dismantling the Dakran military infrastructure piece by piece. But they'll know. They'll figure it out. Will they? Or will they be too busy being terrified of the ghost they created? Jiwan leaned forward. Fear is Taman's real weapon. Not his skills. Not his training. Fear. The Dakran have built him up into this unstoppable monster. Now he's going to use that myth against them. The conversation ended, but Hyun-woo couldn't stop thinking about it. He tried to imagine what Taman was feeling. To be hunted by the entire galaxy. To know that your existence caused suffering. To carry that weight alone. That night, unable to sleep, Hyun-woo accessed Taman's file again. He read through the mission reports. 47 successful operations. Thousands of lives saved. And beneath all the statistics, a single personal note filed by Jiwan years ago. Taman asked me today what happens when he's no longer needed. When the wars end. When peace comes. I didn't have an answer. I think he knows the truth. Men like him don't get peaceful endings. They become so good at being weapons that they forget how to be anything else. Hyun-woo closed the file. He thought about reaching out to Taman somehow. To tell him that he didn't have to do this alone. That the coalition could help. But he knew it would be pointless. Taman had made his choice. 2 weeks passed. Reports came in from across Dakran space. Supply depots destroyed. Communication arrays malfunctioning. Military commanders found dead in their quarters. Each incident was small, insignificant on its own, but together, they created a pattern of chaos. The Dakran military began to fracture. Soldiers questioned their orders. Officers doubted their security. Paranoia spread like poison through their ranks. Who could they trust? How many human operatives were among them? Was the soldier standing next to them really a soldier, or was it Reaper in disguise? Then came the message that changed everything. It was broadcast on every Dakran frequency. Just 7 words, but they shook the Empire to its core. Reaper is coming. You cannot hide. Warlord Kravix responded with rage. He pulled his entire fleet back to the capital world. He fortified every approach. He stationed soldiers at every entrance. He was done being afraid. Let Reaper come. Let this ghost face the full might of the Dakran military. But Taman wasn't coming to the capital world. He was already there. He had arrived 3 weeks earlier, hidden among a crew of civilian workers. While the Dakran prepared for invasion, Taman had moved through their capital city like water through cracks. He learned their routines. He found their weaknesses. He planted his devices and his doubts. And in a small apartment on the edge of the city, he finally allowed himself a moment of rest. There was a knock at the door. Taman's hand moved to his weapon, but then he heard a familiar voice. "It's me, Taman, please, I've come a long way." He opened the door. A woman stood there. She was about his age, with kind eyes and an engineer's practical clothes. Sora, his childhood friend, the only person outside the military who knew his real name. "How did you find me?" Taman asked quietly. "Jiwan told me where to look." She said. Sora's voice cracked. "She said you might need someone to talk to before." "Before what?" "Before you do something that you can't come back from." Taman led her inside. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Sora spoke. 20 years of letters. 20 years of you telling me about your missions in vague terms. About the places you've been and the things you've seen. But you never told me what it cost you. The loneliness. The isolation. The fear that you'll forget who you are beneath the legend. "I haven't forgotten," Taman said, "haven't you? When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? When was the last time you laughed? When was the last time you were just Taman, not Reaper?" He had no answer. "You've saved billions of lives," Sora continued. "You've prevented wars. You've done things that will be studied for generations. But you've also sacrificed everything. Your life, your identity, your chance at happiness. And now you're planning to sacrifice even more. If I don't, the Dakran will keep hunting me. More people will die, then let someone else handle it. You've done enough. There is no one else. Yes, there is. You trained them. Jinha, Unji, Daiho, Yuna. They can continue the work, but only if you're there to guide them. Only if you survive to teach the next generation. Taemin looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in years, he saw himself through someone else's eyes. Not as Reaper, the unstoppable operative, not as Taemin, the weapon, but as a man. Just a man who had been fighting for so long that he'd forgotten there might be something else. I don't know how to stop, he whispered. Then learn, Sora said gently. Win this war. End the threat. But then learn how to be human again. Promise me. Before he could answer, his communicator buzzed. A message from Jinha. 3 words were in position. It was time. The throne room of Warlord Kravik sat at the center of the Dakran capital. 500 guards protected it. Cameras watched every approach. Sensors detected every movement. It was, according to every military expert, absolutely impenetrable. Taemin entered through the front door. He walked calmly through the palace corridors, wearing the uniform of a high-ranking Dakran officer. The uniform was real. He had taken it from an officer 3 weeks ago, along with the officer's access codes, retinal patterns, and voice recordings. The real officer was unconscious in a medical facility, diagnosed with a rare illness that caused memory loss. By the time he recovered, this would all be over. Guards saluted as Taemin passed. Officers nodded respectfully. Nobody questioned him. After all, security had been checking credentials all day. Hundreds of officers had come and gone. What was one more? He reached the throne room at exactly midnight. The timing was critical. At this moment, on 11 other Dakran worlds, his 4 students were executing their own missions. Jinha was destroying a weapons depot on Kavar 4. Yunji was disabling the communications array on their moon base. Daiho was liberating a prison camp. Yuna was stealing military plans from their central database, each action small by itself. Together, they would destroy the Dakran command structure. Taemin placed his hand on the throne room door. It opened smoothly. Inside, Warlord Kravik sat on his throne, surrounded by his personal guard. The warlord looked exactly like his pictures. 7 feet tall, covered in battle scars with eyes that had seen 1,000 wars. Kravik stared at Taemin. You're not Officer Dakin. He's 4 inches shorter and has a scar across his left eye. Taemin removed the helmet. No, I'm not. The guards raised their weapons. 50 barrels pointed at Taemin's chest. But Kravik's held up one hand, stopping them. Reaper, the warlord said. It wasn't a question. You walked into my throne room, alone, unarmed. Either you're insane or this is a trick. Neither, Taemin said calmly. I came to talk. Talk? Kravix laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. You destroy my fleets, kill my commanders, spread fear through my empire. And now you want to talk? Yes, because this needs to end. I agree. Which is why you're going to die here. Will I? Taemin asked. Your sensors aren't detecting any weapons on me. Your guards see 1 unarmed human, but you're still afraid. Why? Kravik's expression darkened. I fear nothing. You fear me. Not because of what I can do with weapons, but because you don't understand how I do it. You've spent months trying to catch me, spent millions of credits, sacrificed your empire's stability, all to stop one man. You're a threat to— I'm a symptom, Taemin interrupted. The real threat is what I represent. For 300 years, you've believed that military might determines power, that the largest fleet wins, that strength equals victory. And then I proved you wrong. Kravik stood from his throne. 1 human does not prove anything. Really? Then why are your soldiers deserting? Why are your officers questioning orders? Why is your empire falling apart? Taemin stepped forward. The guards tensed, but he made no threatening moves. I'll tell you why. Because I taught them doubt. I showed them that security is an illusion, that strength can be defeated by patience, that empires built on fear collapse when that fear turns inward. Enough. Kravix gestured to his guards. Kill him! The guards didn't move. Kravix stared at them in disbelief. I said kill him! One guard slowly lowered his weapon. Then another. Then another. Within moments, all 50 guards had stepped back, creating a clear path between Taemin and the warlord. What have you done? Kravix whispered. I talked to them. Over the past 3 weeks, I spoke with each of your guards. Not as Reaper. As a maintenance worker. A supply clerk. A fellow soldier. I asked them questions. Why do they fight? What do they believe in? What do they want for their families? Taman looked at each guard in turn. These soldiers are tired. Tired of war. Tired of serving leaders who see them as disposable. Tired of fighting battles that benefit only the powerful. They don't want to kill me. They want to go home. Kravix drew his own weapon, pointing it at Taman. You think you can destroy the Dakran Empire with words? With philosophy? No, but I can destroy it with truth. Taman activated a device hidden in his uniform. Holographic displays filled the room, showing live feeds from 11 different Dakran worlds. Each display showed chaos. Weapons depots burning, communication arrays offline, prisons open and empty, military databases wiped clean, and in each feed soldiers stood watching, not fighting. They had been given a choice: continue serving an empire built on fear, or stand aside and let change happen. Most chose to stand aside. While you focused on catching one ghost, Taman said quietly, I built an army of ghosts. I trained 4 humans to do what I do. But more importantly, I spoke with thousands of your people. I showed them that there's another way. That strength isn't the same as power. That fear isn't the same as respect. Kravix looked at the displays. His weapon trembled in his hand. This is impossible. You're just one man. I was never just one man. I was an idea. And ideas are harder to kill than soldiers. The warlord fired his weapon. The shot went wide, missing Taman by inches. Not because Kravix missed, but because his hand was shaking too badly to aim properly. Kill me if you want, Taman said. But it won't stop what's already started. Right now, across your empire, soldiers are choosing peace over war. Officers are questioning orders. Civilians are demanding change. You can kill me, but you can't kill doubt. You can't kill hope. You can't kill the idea that maybe, just maybe, there's a better way. Kravix's weapon lowered slowly. He looked old suddenly, tired. What do you want? End the war. Open negotiations with the coalition. Stop the expansion. Let your people choose their own future instead of having it dictated by warlords. And if I refuse, then your empire will tear itself apart from within. It's already happening. I just accelerated the process. There was a long silence. Then Kravix dropped his weapon. It clattered on the floor with a sound like the end of an era. You win, Ghost. Not with weapons. Not with violence. But with words and patience. With turning our own fears against us. The warlord sat heavily on his throne. Go, before I change my mind. Taman turned to leave. Then he paused. For what it's worth, I know what it's like to be trapped by the role others expect you to play. You don't have to be a warlord. You could just be Kravix. He left the throne room. The guards let him pass without resistance. Some even nodded respectfully. 6 months later, the Dakran Empire signed a peace treaty with the coalition. Warlord Kravix stepped down, replaced by a council of elected representatives. The reforms were slow and imperfect, but they were real. The legend of Reaper faded gradually. Some said he died in the throne room. Others claimed he never existed at all. Just a psychological operation by coalition intelligence. A few whispered that he was still out there watching from the shadows. The truth was simpler. Taman retired. He joined Sora on Mars, taking a job as a security consultant for civilian facilities. He taught classes on defensive strategy. He wrote letters to Jinha, Yunji, Daiho, and Yuna, guiding them as they continued the work he started. He learned to laugh again, to live in light instead of shadow, to be just Taman, not Reaper. But sometimes late at night he would sit by his window and look at the stars. And he would remember the missions, the loneliness, the weight of being a legend. One evening Sora found him staring out the window. Regrets? No, Taman said honestly. I did what needed to be done. I saved lives. I ended a war, but I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I get to be human again. You were always human. You just forgot for a while, Taman smiled. Maybe, but I remember now. Years passed. Peace held. The Dakran rebuilt their society. The coalition grew stronger. And in the shadows, a new generation of human operatives continued the work of protecting the galaxy, not through fear, but through patience and understanding. One day, Commander Hyon Wu, now an admiral, received a message. It came through old encrypted channels, ones that hadn't been used in years. Admiral, new threat detected in the Outer Rim. Requires immediate attention. Tell the council not to worry. Reaper is on station. Maintain radio silence, Hyun Woo smiled. He traced the message's origin but found nothing. No location. No signature. just the message itself. He looked at the signature again. Not Taemin, not Jinha or Yunji or Daiho or Yuna. A new name, a new operative taking up the mantle. The legend continued, not as one person, but as an idea that passed from one generation to the next. The idea that patience was stronger than force. That doubt could defeat armies. That one person, moving quietly through shadows, could change the course of history. Somewhere in the galaxy, a new Reaper moved through darkness. They whispered softly. They moved quietly. And when armies heard their name, those armies trembled. Because the lesson Taemin had taught was simple and eternal. True power doesn't announce itself. True strength doesn't need armies. And the most effective weapon isn't the one that destroys, but the one that makes destruction unnecessary. The legend of Reaper would never die, because it was never about one man. It was about the idea that even in the darkest times, one person willing to be patient, to be clever, to be brave, could stand against impossible odds and win, not with weapons, not with violence, but with the simple,